What is the difference between a trust and a will? Realtor for Century 21 Award Steve Ploetz is here with a couple of very special guests to help us break it down. Please welcome from Waitson, Phillips and Weinberg, Lisa Samuth and Julie Dewberry.
There he is. Steve Ploetz in the house. What's going on, buddy?
I'm doing very well.
All right, great to have you.
On the show.
Absolutely. You wanted to bring on Julie and Lisa today.
Yes.
Tell me why.
Estate attorneys from Whiteson and Associates. What I find as a realtor is that so many times when people are buying or selling, they're in the mind frame of thinking long term, of thinking about finances or CPAs, and an estate attorney is a great referral for me to pass, but also so that people can understand. I would say it's a topic that most people feel like they need to have, but don't know much about.
Yeah, it's tough to begin the conversation, right? And welcome to the show.
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks for being here. Because I think a lot of people know about a will. They know what a will is. You hear people sometimes say, I'm putting you in my will if you do something really nice to them, right?
Absolutely.
And so people think, all right, I need a will. The will is like, all right, you get this microphone and you get this camera if I die. But a trust is different than a will, right? And an estate plan might encompass both. So I think maybe we could help people understand the difference today. Who wants to tell us about the difference between a will and a trust?
I'm happy to let our audience know and to share with everybody the difference between a will and a trust, and it's actually really important for California because in California a lot of people are very concerned about avoiding our probate process, which is a court proceeding. If you have nothing in place or if you have a will in place, you actually will be exposed to the probate process if your estate's over a certain value. There's a threshold amount, and it's $150,000. So if you own a house in California, you are going to be exposed to probate because of the value of real estate here. The goal is to try to avoid that court process because it's expensive, time-consuming, burdensome, and you can do that by virtue of having a revocable living trust in place. And you actually put your assets inside of this trust, which is different than a will. A will, you keep everything in your own name, and your will says, when I go, this is how it'll be distributed. Where a trust, everything gets transferred to the trust, and your trust does the same thing that a will does, where everything's distributed however I've set up inside of a trust. But you get to avoid that court process, and that's a huge goal in California.
Yeah, because isn't it true? I mean, it's great for the probate attorneys, right? Because there's like mandated fee amounts. Right? Oh, okay, if you perform this action, you get this fee, but the fees are huge.
They are.
And so it's very, when you say expensive, I mean, it is very, very expensive and time consuming. It takes a long time to go through the process, right? Because there's only so many courts. There's a lot of people who die. So, I mean, there's only so many people who can get through that process in a timely manner, and it's very few. But I think the other thing, too, is with regard to planning. I mean, with a will, it literally just says, you get this, you get that, you get that, you get this, right?
Correct.
Whereas your trust can have all sorts of provisions in place, really whatever you want to dream up. Mine says that somebody is going to take my ashes and, jump out onto the field of Busch Stadium during a game and spread them out in center field. Okay, do you know that, Steve?
I did not.
That may not, I mean, it's not illegal to do that. They may be kicked out forever. So you can get very specific if you want to.
Absolutely.
About what it is that you want to have happen. And it's not just a matter of if this, then this. It could be if this, then this, then this, then this, right?
Correct, absolutely. There's a lot you can do inside of a trust. Inside your healthcare directive is where you would essentially say what you would want done with your remains, or if you had some particular wishes about life-sustaining support, whether you want heroic measures or you don't want heroic measures. And Julie and I were talking about how we have some clients who come in who may be concerned about a certain type of illness in their family, like Alzheimer's, and how they might want to be able to provide some provisions inside their healthcare directive even to say, if I have some type of dementia or Alzheimer, I want certain types of treatment and I don't want certain types of treatment. And Julie was talking about how she had drafted a healthcare directive, which was some very creative language for her client.
Yes, I had one client, and her specific request is if she was not able to make decisions on her own. First, she did not want any medication besides medication for pain and antibiotics. And then secondly, if she was able to still feed herself and eat, she wanted to be fed a brownie sundae, at least weekly, with full-fat ice cream. So she put that in there. That's what she wanted, and now it'll be a lot easier for her family and her doctors, not just with the pain, but for how to treat her food-wise when she no longer can give them the instruction.
But doing that type of planning allows you to really get into the detail of things. So, or if you have children that you don't want them to just be handed over a lump sum of money, a trust is an ideal vehicle to essentially say, I don't want my 18-year-old to inherit the house, all the insurance, and the retirement money. I'd actually like it to be held in trust and managed by, which a lot of people, because of the will, they want to call it your executor, but it's a trustee, same type of role an executor would have under a will. And that trustee would gather all of that and manage it however you've designed inside of your estate plan. You get a lot of attention, and working with a great attorney who has a lot of experience with that is helpful to kind of get their insight and their background.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the estate plan, I mean, when you get to the healthcare directive, now we're talking about the estate plan, right? So the estate plan will encompass a trust, a will, an advanced healthcare directive. I believe there's something else too.
A power of attorney.
Power of attorney.
Yeah.
So all of those things are going to be inside of your estate plan. So when we say, creating an estate plan, we're not just talking about a trust.
Correct.
Although a lot of people will associate that. The trust is a specific vehicle for making your wishes come true, whether you have the capacity to let someone know about that or not. So you do it when you have the capacity, so that if you don't, for some reason later, people will know what to do.
Absolutely. One of the benefits about a trust is it's private. So when you do a will and you're in probate,
True.
everybody gets to know what you did. They get to know what all your assets are. They get to know who's getting what. Under a trust, you're removed from the court as long as all of your assets are inside of the trust, because one of our biggest things that we do in our office is make sure we educate our clients that creating a trust is great, but you physically have to get your house in the trust, your bank accounts in the trust. Those assets need to be inside of the trust. And essentially the trust can do a lot of things, and within really, sometimes it's very broad parameters. We have clients who come in without children, and I think that's the hardest decision for them, because with your kids, you're like, okay, my kids are getting it equally. I don't want them to get it all until they're 35. We're going to make these lump sum distributions over a certain amount of time. If they want to buy a house, we'll allow our trustee permission to give them money. But then when you don't have kids, it's a little bit more tricky. Which of my friends should I leave money to? Should I leave money to my siblings, my parents, my animals, those types of things? It can get really fun.
It gets really fun, Steve. So we should talk about triggers too, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, like buying a house, definitely. If you bought a house, if you had a child, I mean, these are opportunities to create a trust, right? I mean, this is what, it was designed for, like these situations. Like this is slap in the face moments where you should be like, okay, do I have a trust or do I not? It's amazing. I mean, I think, you tell me what your number is, but I would say at least 90% of people who buy a house don't have a trust.
Oh, I think that's a very fair number, perhaps even more.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to me why the number of people that do not have it and the reasons for not having it, which often comes down to cost or, oh, we're in good health, it's something that we will plan to do later on. It's amazing to me. I completely agree.
Yeah, wow, it's wild.
The New York Times published a stat saying people who are under the age of 40, it's about 18% have something in place. So the younger generations that are up and coming, and I mean, that's reflective. When you're buying your first house, you don't have a trust in place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that makes sense. If to feel like, oh yeah, well I'm young and everything's fine. That's something that's for people who have other things to worry about that I don't have to worry about. But the reality is that once you are in a situation where you have other people that you're caring for, or whether you're in a situation where you might have a probated circumstance should something happen to you, those are the times when you go and create the estate plan, because that's when it is going to make the most sense for you and your family and become the most efficient vehicle for you to get your wishes met, regardless as to whether or not you have the capacity to tell people about them or not. Thank you guys so much for coming today. Really, really appreciate your time. You guys have been great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Fantastic. Oh, and you're okay too, Steve. Stick around for more Smarter San Diego TV, where we guarantee to make you smarter than everyone else, commercial free.